Welcome to the Honest to Godcast, podcast dedicated to learning the truth, and the truth will set you free. I'm your host, Stephen B. Hello, I'm your host, Stephen B. Welcome to the Honest to Godcast. Thanks for hanging out with me today. And today's topic, we're going to call it the devil, Lucifer, and Satan. Who are they? This is because of one of our subscribers asked me to do a timeline from when Lucifer fell from heaven and became Satan. So let's get into that, and we'll show you the reason why most of the religions, especially among the Christian ones, and even in Islam, the story is still the same, except it's not Lucifer, it's Iblis. But the story is very similar. The thread is out there. And how did that happen? How did that come to be? Um, tell you a little story. This goes back to the early 70s, 72, 73, somewhere in there. And I became interested in comparative religions, started studying them, and working toward getting my degree in theology. So this episode contains a lot of theology, and if that bothers you, uh, you know, feel free to move on. That's fine. Um, I remember one time my sister asked me, "Why do I got to learn Bibleese?" She called it Bibleese, and I said, "So that you'll know how to talk to those people." It makes perfect sense, right? You want to know, through your own research, what is palatable and what's not, you know. But getting back to 1972, 73, I was a young man, and I met a girl, and we courted a relationship, and she was a Christian. I didn't know that much about it at the time, and I asked her, where did evil come from? Where did the devil come from? And so she took me to uh, the scripture. She opened her Bible up to the book of Isaiah, and that would be the 14th chapter. And she read verses 12 through 14, which is only really two scriptures. Uh, and it says, "How thou art fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning. How art thou cut down to the ground, which did weaken the nations? For thou hast said in thy heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit also upon the mount of congregation in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High." And so she used those scriptures, and I found out that this was ubiquitous among the Christian faith, to prove that Lucifer fell from heaven and became Satan. Uh, Now, I know a lot of people aren't going to like this, but that story can't be true, and I'll give you some reasons. Number one, when you go into Genesis, especially the first 11 chapters, which are a Reader's Digest condensed version of the very earlier, older Sumerian and Babylonian text, you have this story of the Garden of Eden, and you have um, the serpent, who is commonly identified as the devil as well. It's a shape shifting reptilian entity that was there, um, is the evil tempter in the garden. And how can you have Lucifer in heaven? Because he wasn't cast out until Calvary. And the reason I say that, Jesus says, right before he said, "If I be lifted up, I will draw them into unto me," he says, "Now is the judgment, now is the prince cast out." So, how do you have him as Lucifer in heaven and have him as the devil in the Garden of Eden? You got to remember that when one age passes into another age in roughly 2,000 year intervals, and we go into a new zodiacal age, uh, the religions are usually uh, changed by governments, like what the Flavians did, through Flavius Josephus and all of those the Flavians that kind of reconstructed what Christianity was. Okay, and this is something that they did in 325 AD at the Nicene Council, where they took the books that we really should be studying and reading that are pertinent to what we're dealing with in society now, and they banned those books from the Bible, confabulated this other story, made it look like a seamless narrative, and turned all the Elohim stories into one long Yahweh story. And that's not the way the scriptures were written. And so, another thing that they did, Constantine had a spin doctor named Eusebius, changed his name to Saint Jerome, and he changed the word Hallel in Hebrew, which means shining one, like a star. Uh, so that doesn't imply that this being Hallel was an angel, but he changed it into a proper name, Lucifer. And then they spun the story that this Lucifer was in heaven. There was a war in heaven, and all those things happened. And then he, boom, became the devil. The other reason I say that it's impossible to do a timeline like this is because uh, in the gospel, Yeshua himself says that Satan was a liar and a murderer from the beginning. Now, does the phrase from the beginning apply to absolutely everyone and everything in the universe except Satan, this Lucifer? No. If he was a liar and a murderer from the beginning, just go back to the beginning and read the story, and it will explain all that to you. And so my contention is that this story that they have confabulated has nothing to do with Lucifer becoming Satan. In fact, if you go back to that text, and okay, so we have text and then we have context. Well, what is context? Context is the overall environment in which the text were written. Okay, and so if you go back and read that entire chapter, you find out that, uh, starting in verse 4 of that chapter, says, "Thou shalt take up this proverb against the king of Babylon, and say, How hath the oppressor ceased? The golden city ceased." And when you read that in context, with the environment that it was written in ancient Babylon, you got to remember Isaiah, Ezekiel, Daniel, and I believe Jeremiah were all contemporaries. They knew each other's work. They bounced ideas off of each other. And in fact, when they found the Dead Sea Scrolls, they found that the book of Isaiah is in the Dead Sea Scrolls is almost word for word. Once again, they changed this name on how thou art fallen, O Lucifer. It should be Hallel. Is it surprising that among our politicians and entertainers and and especially if it's somebody that's like really huge, like Elvis was back in the day, you wouldn't say he was a star, you'd say he was a superstar. And when these guys crash and burn, like a lot of them do, because they become amoral, they become immoral, some of them. I'm not saying that's what happened with Elvis by any means. I'm just using this as an example. Uh, but when you read the rest of this chapter, uh, and it uh, getting down around the 15th, 16th verse, yet thou shalt be brought down into hell to the sides of the pit. They that see thee shall look narrowly upon thee and consider thee, saying, is this the man that made the earth to tremble, that did shake kingdoms? Is this the man? Man. So this wasn't one like or kind of like the Son of Man. This was a human being that it was talking about. That's who this Hillel was. He was the king of Babylon. Which king would that have been? Well, uh, could have been Gilgamesh, maybe. I don't think so, but um, I think that since Daniel and uh, Isaiah were contemporaries, I think it was talking about Nebuchadnezzar because Daniel has this vision of the head of gold and the shoulders and arms of silver, and then these precious metals get less and less and less until finally you're at the end with feet of iron and clay, and nothing is cohesive and nothing sticks and everything's dysfunctional. And when you read about the life of Nebuchadnezzar, you find that that's exactly what happened to him. The story fits perfectly, and so anyway, I don't want to belabor the point, but this is another one of those things that they did at the Nicene Council to make us believe this narrative. About Lucifer becoming Satan. But the fact is, if you go back to the beginning, study the story again, you'll find, just like Yeshua says in the Gospels, uh, that he was a liar and a murderer from the beginning, and that's it can't you can't have it both ways. It's a good story. It makes for oh God, all the Hollywood renderings of this, and all of this stuff. You can come up with some really interesting uh, concepts that way. But that doesn't mean that it's true either, does it? No, it doesn't. And so, anyway, a couple of thoughts to leave you with is, of course, do your own research. Um, and another thing too is, these theologians for 2,000 years, and even before that, with the high priest, you know, they, it's like today's Easter, right? And so it's like the second most high holy day in Christianity. But when you research it, it's Easter, Aster, Asteroth. It goes all the way back, to these mystery religions, the mystery schools of Babylon, that are talked about in the book of Revelation. And, the whole thing of the Easter egg hunts. And so what they did is they took to make it fit with Christianity, or to make Christianity fit with pagan. And by pagan, I don't mean that in a derogatory way. Pagan just means any non Christian Muslim or Jew. Um, the Abrahamic faiths, as it's called. That's what pagan means, and I'm certainly not um, uh, trying to be derogatory toward pagan. I mean, according to that definition, even the Buddhistic faiths can be called pagan. But when you you know rewind the tape and find out about these things, all of these so-called holidays, which comes from Holy Day, they have their roots somewhere in the world in pagan mystery religions. And once again, The mystery schools know more about scripture, they know more about prophecy, they know more about these things than your average Christian does, because the average Christian has these blinders on that these theologians are right. They're not. They're spin doctors. And I'll be the first person with a degree in theology that'll say that. And so anyway, that's my podcast for today. I hope that that you remain healthy, stay well. Um, come back again, see us sometime, and please do your own research. This Luciferian story, the point I was going to make, and then I'll close with this, is that in those mystery religions, the Luciferian construct, in the Luciferian um, narrative, uh, they know that they use the term Lucifer as for the intellect and enlightenment. Okay, so it's Luciferian in its nature. And so anyway, no, there was no, you can't do a timeline. That there's no evidence whatsoever that Lucifer is Satan. And so anyway, thanks for tuning in. We appreciate you. If you want to leave comments about this, I'm fine with that. I don't censor anyone, and I do thank you for your time.